The silence in Training Hall 16 was the kind that made your skin crawl. 42 cadets stood at rigid attention, their boots polished to mirrors, their uniforms pressed so sharp you could cut yourself on creases. But their eyes told a different story. Fear, pure, unadulterated terror. Instructor Vorn Kessler walked between the rows like a predator selecting his next meal. His cybernetic eye whirred and clicked as it scanned each face, cataloging weaknesses, storing ammunition for later humiliation. He was 6'4", pure military sadism, wrapped in a coalition uniform that had seen more battles than most species had seen generations. Pathetic, he spat, stopping in front of a trembling Zillion cadet. The poor creature's 4 arms were shaking so badly, his rifle nearly clattered to the floor. Absolutely pathetic. You call yourselves the future defenders of the Galactic Coalition? I have seen better soldiers in a kindergarten playground. Someone in the back row made a sound. It might have been a cough. It might have been a laugh. Whatever it was, Instructor Kessler's head snapped toward it like a targeting system acquiring a lock. Something funny, cadet? You find the imminent destruction of everything you love amusing. The cadets collectively held their breath. No one moved. No one dared. Except one. Mira Chen stepped forward. Just one step. But in that moment, it might as well have been a declaration of war. She was small by human standards, barely 5'5", with dark hair pulled back in a regulation bun, and eyes that held something the other cadets lacked entirely. Defiance. Not the stupid kind that got you killed. The calculated kind that made your enemies nervous. No disrespect intended, Instructor, she said, her voice steady as bedrock. But fear does not make better soldiers. It makes corpses. The hall went from silent to vacuum silent, the kind of quiet that exists between stars. Kessler turned slowly, his boots squeaking against the polished floor. His cybernetic eye zoomed in on her face, recording, analyzing, probably already drafting her discharge papers. And what, he asked, each word dripping with venom, would a human know about making soldiers? Your species has been spacefaring for what, 300 years? My people were conquering star systems when yours was still figuring out fire. And yet, Mira replied, here we both are, same uniform, same rank. Interesting, is it not? A Torvian cadet near the front actually gasped. The sound was almost comical, like air escaping from a balloon. Kessler's organic eye twitched. His jaw clenched so hard you could hear his teeth grinding. Cadet Chun, he said, pronouncing her name like it was a disease. Since you seem to think you know better than someone with 47 years of combat experience, perhaps you'd like to demonstrate your superior human methodology. He reached into his belt and pulled out something that made the entire front row stumble backward. A Mark 7 plasma grenade. Military grade. The kind that could vaporize a small building. Instructor, the hall's AI monitoring system chimed in, its voice tight with concern. Protocol 17 clearly states that live ordnance is prohibited in training environments without proper. Override, Kessler snapped. Authorization, Kessler 779. Override accepted. Recording for review. The other cadets began backing away, forming a rough circle around Mira and the Instructor. Some of them were praying. Others were calculating how quickly they could reach the exits. The Zillion cadet with 4 arms looked like he was about to faint. Mira did not move. The exercise is simple, Kessler said, a cruel smile spreading across his scarred face. This grenade has a 5-second fuse. I am going to activate it and drop it at your feet. You will have 5 seconds to decide what to do. Pick it up and throw it away, dive for cover, or stand there and die. Most recruits choose the first option. The smart ones choose the second. And what do the brave ones choose? Mira asked. Kessler laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. There are no brave ones, cadet. Bravery is just stupidity with better marketing. He activated the grenade. The high-pitched whine filled the hall as the weapon began its countdown. Then he dropped it, right at her feet. 5. The cadets screamed. Some ran. Others dropped to ground, covering their heads with their arms as if that would save them from plasma fire. 4. Mira looked down at the grenade. It was small, almost innocent-looking. Just a silver cylinder with a blinking red light. In 4 seconds, it would release enough energy to turn her into a memory. 3. She bent down. She is picking it up, someone shouted. She is going to throw it. 2. But she did not throw it. Instead, Mira Chen, human, 23 years old, daughter of a mechanic and a school teacher from New Shanghai, did something that would be talked about in military academies for the next 1,000 years. She closed her hand around it. 1. The grenade detonated. Plasma fire erupted from between her fingers, a miniature sun contained in her palm. The light was blinding. The heat was unimaginable. The sound was a roar that shook the foundations of the building. And Mira Chen stood there, her arm extended, her fist clenched around nuclear hell, and she held it still. Her skin did not burn. Her flesh did not melt. Her bones did not turn to ash. Instead, something else happened. Something impossible. The plasma began to compress. The fire that should have consumed her, that should have reduced her to atoms, began to fold in on itself. The light grew brighter, then brighter still, until it was a single point of absolute brilliance in her palm. Then it went out. Mira opened her hand. A small, glowing crystal sat in her palm, still warm, still pulsing with residual energy. She had not just survived a plasma bomb. She had absorbed it, converted it, made it hers. The silence that followed was different from before. This was not fear. This was awe. Instructor Kessler stood frozen, his cybernetic eye clicking and whirring as it tried to process what it had just witnessed. His organic eye was wide. The pupil dilated to a pinpoint. His mouth hung open slightly, like a man who had just watched the laws of physics get rewritten in front of him. "How?" he whispered. Then louder, "How did you do that?" Mira looked at the crystal in her hand, then back at the instructor. "You wanted to know what humans know about making soldiers? We know that fear is a tool, and tools can be used by anyone." She tossed the crystal to him. He caught it reflexively, then immediately dropped it like it had burned him. It clattered to the floor, rolling, to a stop against his boot. "We also know," she continued, "that the best way to defeat a weapon is to become something it cannot destroy." The cadets were staring at her now, all of them, the zillion with 4 arms, the Torvian who had gasped. Even the ones who had run were peeking back through the doorway, unable to look away. "Were you?" Kessler demanded. His voice had lost its edge. Now it was just a question, raw and honest. Mira smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was a smile of someone who had been underestimated their entire life and was thoroughly enjoying this moment. "I am Cadet Mira Chen," she said, "and I am exactly what the Coalition asked for when they put out the call for human volunteers. You wanted soldiers? You got something better." She turned to face the other cadets, her voice rising to fill the hall. "Humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the fastest or the smartest or the most technologically advanced. We die easy. We break easy. 100 different things can kill us before breakfast." She paused, letting that sink in. "But we are also the only species that looks at something that should kill us and asks, 'How can I survive this?' We are the only ones who take our weaknesses and turn them into weapons. We adapt. We evolve. We overcome. And we do it faster than any species in known space." She held up her hand, the one that had just contained a plasma explosion. The skin was unmarked. Perfect. 20 years ago, human scientists cracked the code on energy absorption. It took us 6 months to go from theory to prototype. Within a year, we had the first successful test subject. Within 5 years, we had 100. Within 10, 1,000. Now, she smiled again. Now we have me. Instructor Kessler finally found his voice. "That technology is classified. The Coalition Council banned human augmentation research after the Epsilon incident. They banned the research they knew about," Mira replied. "Did you really think it would stop? Did you really think that a species that crawled out of mud, that survived ice ages and plagues and wars and the death of our own sun, would just shrug and say, 'Oh, well, guess we will stay weak forever'?" She laughed. It was genuine, warm, almost friendly. Somehow, that made it more terrifying. "Instructor, we have been preparing for this moment since the day we joined the Coalition. Since the day we looked up at the stars and realized we were the smallest fish in a very big ocean. You think we volunteered for your military out of gratitude? Out of loyalty? No, we did it because we needed access. Access to what? Everything. Your weapons, your ships, your tactics, your technology. Every species in the coalition has something we needed, and you all just handed it over because you thought we were harmless, cute little humans, so eager to learn, so grateful for any scraps from the table. She stepped closer to Kessler, close enough that he actually took a step back. The mighty instructor, 47 years of combat experience, retreating from a cadet. You want to teach us fear today, she said quietly. Let me teach you something instead. Humans do not just learn from their teachers. We surpass them. It is what we do. It is all we have ever done. And now, after 300 years of sitting at your feet and taking notes, she leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper. Class is over. The training hall doors burst open. A squad of coalition military police stormed in, weapons raised, armor gleaming under the harsh lights. Behind them came a figure in a pristine white uniform, the kind worn only by high command. Admiral Zeth Corvain, Supreme Commander of Coalition Forces, stepped into the hall like he owned it, which, technically, he did. Instructor Kessler, he said, his voice like grinding stone. You are under arrest for unauthorized use of military ordnance, endangerment of cadets, and approximately 17 other violations that I do not have time to list. Kessler sputtered. Admiral, I was simply conducting a training exercise. The human cadet just saved your life, Corvain interrupted. If that grenade had detonated normally, everyone in this room would be dead, including you. He turned to Mira, his expression unreadable. Cadet Chen, come with me. It was not a request. Mira nodded and fell into step behind the Admiral. As she passed Kessler, she paused. For what it is worth, she said, your lesson was not entirely wrong. Fear can be useful, just not in the way you think. She left him standing there, surrounded by MPs and stunned cadets, his career in ruins, his understanding of the universe fundamentally shattered. The doors closed behind her. The Admiral's personal transport cut to the upper atmosphere of Nexus Prime like a blade through silk. Inside, the cabin was silent except for the soft hum of the engines and the occasional beep from navigation systems. Mira sat across from Admiral Corvain, studying him. He was old, even by Zentari standards, with silver scales that had once been brilliant blue and eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. His service record read like a history book. 40 campaigns, 12 decisive victories, the hero of the Carthax siege. And right now, he was looking at her like she was either his salvation or his doom, and he could not decide which. You know why I brought you here, he said finally. You want to know how many of us there are, Mira replied. You want to know if humanity is a threat, and you want to know what we plan to do with our new abilities. That would be a start. She smiled, settling back in her seat. 5,312. Yes, but not in the way you think. And we plan to do exactly what we have always done. Survive. Corvain's scales rippled, a sign of agitation in his species. 5,000 augmented humans, hidden from coalition oversight, trained in secret, armed with technology we do not fully understand. He leaned forward. Cadet Chun, do you have any idea how that sounds? It sounds like a problem, she admitted, but it is not the problem you should be worried about. Enlighten me. Mira reached into her uniform pocket and pulled out a data chip. She placed it on the table between them, letting it sit there like an unexploded bomb. Do you know what this is? I am assuming you're going to tell me. This is a complete record of every communication, every transaction, every secret meeting conducted by the Syndicate Council in the last 18 months. Trade routes, weapon shipments, assassination orders. A full manifest of their infiltration into Coalition High Command. She paused, including the names of the 7 admirals currently on their payroll. Corvain went very still. His scales stopped rippling. His breathing became shallow. That is impossible, he said. The Syndicate's encryption is unbreakable. Their security was, Mira corrected. Their security was unbreakable. Past tense. 3 months ago, a human agent named Carlos Mendez walked into their central database on Craven Station, absorbed the entire system's electrical output to knock out their defenses, and downloaded everything before they even knew he was there. She tapped the chip. This is what humanity has been doing while you were busy underestimating us. Admiral, while your instructors were dropping plasma grenades at our feet and laughing at our weakness, we were saving your civilization. Corvain stared at the chip for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, quieter, almost humble. Why, if you have this much power, this much intelligence, why help us at all? You could destroy the coalition. You could take it over. Why play the role of loyal soldiers? Because we are loyal, Mira said simply, just not to your institutions. We are loyal to the idea, the dream, a galaxy where every species has a seat at the table, where strength is not measured by who can crush whom, but by what we can build together. She shook her head. That dream is dying, Admiral. The Syndicate is killing it from within, and the Coalition is too blind to see it. So, you decided to see it for us. Someone had to. The transport shuddered slightly as it began its descent. Through the window, Mira could see the sprawling cityscape of Nexus Prime's capital, towers of glass and steel reaching toward the clouds like prayers. Somewhere down there, the Coalition Council was meeting, probably discussing her right now, probably terrified. Good. There's going to be a war, Corvain said. It was not a question. There is already a war, Mira replied. It started the moment the Syndicate decided that profit mattered more than people. The Coalition just has not admitted it yet. And humanity? Where do you stand? She looked at him then, really looked at him, trying to see past the scales and the uniform and the decades of service to the being underneath. He was scared, genuinely scared. Not of her, she realized, but of what her existence meant for everything he had dedicated his life to. We stand where we have always stood, she said softly, between the darkness and everyone else. The transport touched down on a private landing pad, far from the public terminals. A squad of Coalition security officers was waiting, along with 3 members of the Council in their ceremonial robes. Their expressions ranged from hostile to curious to outright frightened. Perfect. Admiral Corvain stood, straightening his uniform. Before we go out there, I need to know one thing. Ask. The instructor, Kessler, he is not Syndicate. He is just a cruel old soldier who has been at this too long. What you did to him in that training hall, publicly humiliating him, destroying his career, was that necessary? Mira considered the question. It deserved an honest answer. No, she admitted. It was not necessary. It was satisfying, which is not the same thing. She paused. But it was also strategic. By tomorrow, every cadet in every training hall in the Coalition will have heard what happened. They will know that humans are not weak. They will know that power does not always look the way they expect. And they will know that anyone who tries to break us with fear will find that fear is a door that swings both ways. She stood and moved to the door. Sometimes, Admiral, the message is more important than mercy. Kessler will survive. His ego might not, but that is probably good for everyone. The door opened. The council members surged forward, already talking, already demanding explanations. Mira tuned them out. She had said her piece. The data chip was in the Admiral's hand now, and in a few hours, everything would change. The following 17 days were chaos. Coalition security moved fast once they understood the scope of what the Syndicate had accomplished. Arrests swept through high command like wildfire. 3 admirals tried to flee. 2 were caught. The third, a Prothean named Vex Orinova, made it as far as the jump point to neutral space before a human pilot named Diana Reyes matched his ship's energy signature, absorbed his shields, and left him drifting in the void waiting for pickup. You know, Diana's voice crackled over the comm as she circled his disabled vessel. My grandmother used to say that the universe has a way of balancing the scales. You spent 30 years selling out your own people for profit. Now you are floating in the dark, all alone, waiting to find out if anyone thinks you are worth saving. She paused, letting that sink in. Personally, I would not hold my breath. The council convened an emergency session. For 12 hours, they debated, argued, and screamed at each other, while Mira sat in the gallery and watched. Some wanted to arrest every augmented human immediately. Others wanted to study them, poke and prod them like lab specimens. A few, a very few, understood that humanity had just handed them a gift and it would be monumentally stupid to respond with hostility. In the end, pragmatism won. Admiral Corvain stood before the council and presented a proposal. The Augmented Human Division would be officially recognized as a special operations branch of coalition forces. They would operate with autonomy, answering directly to High Command, and their existence would be made public to serve as a deterrent. The galaxy needs to see this, Corvain argued. They need to know that the coalition does not just have soldiers. It has protectors, guardians, beings who can walk through fire and come out stronger. And if they turn on us, asked Counselor Veth, an elderly Torvian whose suspicion of humans was well documented. Corvain looked at Mira in the gallery. She met his gaze steadily. Then we will have earned it, he said. Humanity has not given us any reason to doubt them. The question is whether we have given them reason to doubt us. The vote was close, 12-9, but it passed. That night, Mira stood on the observation deck of Nexus Prime's tallest tower, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Syndicate was regrouping, licking their wounds, planning revenge. The war was not over. It was barely beginning. But for the first time in 300 years, humanity had a seat at the table that they had not begged for, bargained for, or stolen. They had earned it, the hard way, the human way, her communicator chirped. She answered, "Chun here." Mira, it was Carlos Mendez, his voice warm and familiar. Saw the vote. Congratulations. Though I heard you could be more diplomatic with the council members. Diplomacy is your department. I just absorb explosions and look intimidating. He laughed. Fair enough. Listen, we have a situation. Craven Station is back online. Someone rebuilt their security grid faster than we expected. Command wants us to check it out. Us. You, me, Diana, and a couple of the new recruits. Corvain is calling Operation Ember. Very dramatic. Mira smiled despite herself. When do we leave? 6 hours. Pack light. And Mira, his voice softened. What you did in that training hall, holding the grenade, that was reckless, even for you. I know. And also incredibly cool. Just, do not make a habit of it. Some of us would like you to stick around. I will do my best, she said. No promises. She ended the call and turned back to the window. Her reflection stared back at her, overlaid against the stars. She looked tired. She looked determined. She looked exactly like what she was. A weapon, a protector, a human being. Behind her, the door opened. She did not turn around, but she knew who it was. Some footsteps you just recognize. Instructor Kessler, she said. I would say I am surprised, but I am really not. He stepped up beside her, looking out at the same view. His uniform was gone, replaced by civilian clothes that did not quite fit right. His cybernetic eye was dark, either deactivated or removed. He looked smaller somehow, like someone had let the air out of him. I wanted to understand, he said quietly. All those years, all those cadets, I thought I was making them stronger, teaching them to survive. You were teaching them to fear, Mira said. There is a difference. I know that now. He turned to face her. When you held that grenade, when you just stood there and took it, I saw something I had never seen before. Courage. Real courage. Not the absence of fear, but the presence of something greater. Purpose, Mira said. It was purpose. Yes. He nodded slowly. I spent 47 years fighting wars for people who did not deserve it. I followed orders, won battles, lost friends. And I never once asked myself why. I just assumed the strength was enough. The winning was enough. He looked old, truly old, in a way that had nothing to do with years. I want to help, he said. I know I do not deserve it. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I have 47 years of experience. And if I can use that to actually do some good for once in my miserable life, then that is what I want. Mira studied him for a long moment. This was not the same man who had dropped a plasma grenade at her feet. That man had been cruel, arrogant, certain of his superiority. This man was broken, but sometimes broken things could be rebuilt into something better. We have recruits coming in, she said finally, new volunteers from Earth. Most of them have never been off planet. They are going to need training. You want me to train humans? I want you to train soldiers. Real soldiers. The kind who fight because they choose to, not because they are too scared to run. She paused. Can you do that? He straightened up slightly. Not much, but enough. Yes, he said. I can do that. Good. Report to Admiral Corvain at 0600 tomorrow. And Kessler, if you ever drop another live grenade on one of my people, I will absorb your entire ship and leave you in the vacuum. We clear. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Crystal. He left. Mira turned back to the window. 6 hours until the mission. 6 hours until the next crisis, the next battle, the next impossible situation that required a human touch. She should sleep. She should eat. She should do all the sensible things that sensible people did. Instead, she stood there and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, the Syndicate was plotting. Other threats were gathering. The universe was vast and dark and full of things that wanted to snuff out the light. But humanity had walked out of the darkness before. Out of caves and ice ages and extinction events that should have ended them. Out of wars and plagues and disasters that would have broken any other species. They had looked up at the stars and said, "We are coming." And now they were here. Not as servants. Not as students. Not as the galaxy's cute little newcomers who needed protection. As equals. As protectors, as the beings who held plasma bombs in their bare hands and asked, "Is that all you have got?" Mira smiled. "Let them come."